Welcome back to the Life Legacy Podcast. And today it's a beautiful day, a great opportunity to get to sit down with someone that has achieved so much in their life in a financial aspect, but also in a family aspect, in an athletic aspect, in a spiritual aspect. And so, who I'm bringing to the table today has built a dynasty in real estate, built assets under management over 28 billion, not million, in his career, and took a company public. And much more than that, he is a phenomenal father. And
Thank you.
you see that because you know his kids publicly. And so I get to bring on John S. Pennington Jr. to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jaxon. Really, really great to be here.
Yeah.
I love your studio too. It's fantastic. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
As always, I'm sitting on the shoulders of giants, and I feel like life sometimes gives you cool opportunities, and this studio has been a beautiful opportunity that I feel very fortunate about.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And your podcasts are doing great here, and I hear your audience is growing, so that's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into you.
Okay, let's talk about me.
So first off, what fires you up? What gets you excited?
Whole life in general. I just love life, and I tell people all the time, especially in the United States of America, I'm like, man, I have a formula, and I've taught my kids this. It's 1 + 2 = 3. If in the United States of America, if you're an entrepreneur, and number one, you stay healthy, you got to remember that, stay healthy. That's number one. And number two, if you wake up every day and try, number three, you will eventually succeed in the United States of America. So I know friends that are unhealthy who are vastly successful in business and all kinds of things. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying in the United States of America, if you believe in, religion, and you were up in heaven, and you're like, I'm an entrepreneur and I want to go to the greatest country in the world, you would come to the United States of America. I mean, I don't know if we're the best in math. I don't know if we're the best in reading, and I don't know, AI, I'm not sure. But for an entrepreneur, this is the place to be. And so if you come here and you're an entrepreneur, we have financing, we have courses, we have everything an entrepreneur needs. It's here. And all you have to do as a formula academically, wake up, stay healthy. Number one, don't forget that. Wake up every day and try, and eventually you will succeed in the United States of America. You might fail at this business and the next business, because in my lifetime, I believe I've started 14 businesses.
14.
And 3 I've made a lot of money on. 3 I've lost money on, and the rest of the middle, they all kind of did good,
Did something.
Yeah, they did good, And so, but those are the worst ones. You don't know if should I go one more year and then I could make it really big, or should I just cut the strings and go to another one, right? And so it's a formula. 1 + 2 = 3. Wake up every day. I got my own formula. Stay healthy, wake up every day and try, and eventually you'll succeed. Now, some of my businesses that failed, you go to bed at night and you're crying on your big pillow thinking, how am I gonna make payroll next Friday, right? But it doesn't matter, right? As long as you wake up the next day and try, maybe that business does eventually fail, right? And like I told you, I had 3 that didn't do well and failed. But it doesn't matter. My goal was, one day I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur, business owner. And the goal was, I might have to fail in a few businesses to learn some things, which we'll talk about today, the failures. But in the end, America is the greatest country for an entrepreneur. That's all I got to say. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You hit on something around the word try. Sometimes that means so many different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, what would your definition of trying, your best, what does that mean?
Yeah, just giving it all. I mean, I'll tell you, when I was 17 years old, and I told this in my book, I looked into the mirror, and I don't know how I came up with this, but I came up with this because I was thinking about, when you're 17-ish, you're thinking about careers and how you're going to make money. You don't know how to make money. You're just a kid, right? And I just said to myself, my essence, the one thing I'm going to repeat to myself for years, I looked in the mirror and I said, John, you're not afraid of being poor. You're not afraid of being old. You're just afraid of being old and poor at the same time, right? And so over the years of all those businesses I started, I just kept repeating that to myself. You're young, you can work, stay healthy, work hard every day. And, don't get old and don't be old and poor at the same time. And you have enough time in your lifetime to make sure that doesn't happen if you concentrate on it. But if you don't concentrate on that one thing, you don't say it over and over and over yourself, then you get distracted and go off these places and do stupid things. And and then you might wake up old and poor at the same time. And that was one thing. And I tell my sons and I tell people I talk to, I say, just take that saying and not every morning, but every so long, you're brushing your teeth in the morning on your mirror, in your bathroom, have that saying written and you repeat it out loud. I'm not afraid of being poor. I'm not afraid of being old. I'm just afraid of being old and poor at the same time. And I think that will hit your subconscious. And I think it just works its way through. And you sit there and go, if I stay healthy and I get up every day and try, eventually I will succeed in the United States of America. Yeah.
Do you think that initially came to you through watching or seeing people that were old and poor?
Well, it was a fear. It was a fear that
Yeah.
I see people that when they get, there are people that have got to a spot in their life where they physically can't burn both candles at burn the candle at two ends, right?
Yeah.
And when you're young, you can. And so, but I see people waste those, that candle, and they waste it on, I shouldn't say waste. They just decide to put their life in a different direction.
Yeah.
And
Decisions.
they lose the focus of, it's possible that so many years from now, I could not be healthy anymore and I can't work 80 hours a week and I'm going to be poor. And that's just a bad spot to be in. So I would envision myself old and poor, and it was fear. I'm going to do everything I can in my life not to be that person. Right.
It's interesting. I feel like there's some back and forth on that with like the thought process of focusing on like the abundance of what you're going to build. But then there's also the side that people, buy on pain versus vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you were setting yourself up like, hey, this is what I'm not going to be.
Right.
And that made you react.
React in a positive way, right?
Yeah.
Stay healthy. You have vitamins. Eat good. Wake up every day. Don't be hungover when you wake up in the morning. You can't be wasted for the first 3 days of the week and then try to just put in 2 good days. You got to put in, a lot of days every week over and over and over. And sometimes it still doesn't work. Sometimes that business just doesn't work for a lot of reasons, right? So.
Well, I want to talk about your childhood. I want to talk about how you built this dynasty, obviously. But we're on the topic of health, and we have to talk about how you got a gold stripped from you.
So what he's talking about for the podcast, we're talking about what I'm up to right now, and I swim in the Huntsman World Senior Games every year, and it happens in St. George, Utah. 10,800 athletes showed up last year from 29 countries. And for comparison, this Paris Olympics had 10,000 athletes ish. And this event has 10,800 athletes from 29 countries.
It's the real deal.
Yeah. No, the ping pong, tennis, pickleball, basketball, they got shooting, they got bike races, they got swimming. Of course I do the swimming. It's just a fun event to go to. And they got golf. It's really just a great event. It's 2.5 weeks long, and I swim. And last year I did win the gold for my first time in the 100 meter breaststroke at a minute 27 seconds, which I was very proud of that time. Minute 27 seconds for a 100 meter breaststroke. But I also won the 50 meter butterfly in my division. And I looked up at the board. I'm up there number 1, right? And the next day I got out of the pool and I came back the next day to pick my medals, and I had been disqualified. They stripped me of my gold medal. What happened? And at the end, I guess, and I'm not saying they're wrong, at the end, you have to touch with 2 hands simultaneously on the butterfly. And I touched with 1 hand like this. And the judges disqualified me for that, so I didn't get my gold. And then they don't give you bronze. They don't give you silver. They just say you're disqualified. And so I'm coming back this year to try to get that medal back. But it's a great event, and I've done this my 3rd year, and it's just a fantastic event. It's fun to go to, and it's just I don't know, and it gives me a goal all year to stay in shape, to eat right, kind of things like that. Also, I can tell you, and this is the one thing I can still beat my kids at. I can beat them at swimming. but my kids are great athletes, and I can beat them at swimming only, and I can still out bench press them. At 61 years old,
Oh my
I
gosh.
bench pressed. It was like 4 or 5 months ago, my 61st birthday week. I
Mhm.
bench pressed 345 pounds
My
at age
gosh.
61, and I'm not a huge guy, right? I just get up every day and try and
Well,
work out.
you're not a small guy
I'm not a
either.
small guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a small guy, but 5'9", 100, whatever, 200 pounds, whatever I am, so 200.
280 pure muscle.
Yeah, 280. I'm 280. I'm 280. Yeah. No, but no, those two things I can still, hang with the guys and swimming and bench press. Everything else, old age just gets you. After a while, you just, my saying is, I fight old age every day. I know eventually I'm going to lose that battle, but not today. I'm not going to lose today, right? I'm going to make the most of my world today. So,
Love it.
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, at 61, pushing harder than ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you know, I think we've showcased like, yeah, you've been able to build an amazing life. Now we need to connect you with our audience here.
Okay.
And so tell us how you were as a child. What was your childhood like growing up?
So I think I understand when you're talking to me about your audience demographic, and I've got thinking of some stories that might fit kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was a really good athlete, but I was a small person, right? And I was a great swimmer. I was captain of the football team. I was captain of the baseball team. I was the underhand softball pitcher. I won a regional meet in pole vault. What else did I do? Played on the baseball team. I just did a lot of sports, right?
Yeah.
But at one point during high school ish, I looked in the mirror and go, John, after all the muscles you put up, not after all you do, you're still 5'9" and 175 pounds, right? And so you sit there and going, the probability of you being a professional athlete, even though you have all these skills, you got, what I'm trying to say is you got to leave this path,
Yeah.
and you got to start another path. And I think a lot of people in life have to do that. They have a path they want to do, and at some point you run probabilities. I don't like to predict the future. I like to run probabilities. And I sat there, one of my first probabilities I ever ran was, hey, what's the probability you're going to be a professional athlete? And I just ran the numbers kind of in my head, and they were really slim. So therefore, why don't you get on a different path that you could succeed at something else that has higher probabilities? And I knew that I didn't like authority, really. I was kind of, I was always fighting authority. And so I knew I wouldn't do well in a big corporation with bosses. I have a boss, and I would envision this every year. I'm going to sit down once a year with my boss, and I'm going to be negotiating with the boss if they're going to give me a 2% raise or a 3% raise. And that just was like, I wanted to shoot myself. What? Every year I'm going to do that? No, I'm not going to do that. So I had a partner once, they used to tell me this all the time. He said, I would rather own my own hot dog stand and make less money running my own hot dog stand than to work for somebody else. Right. Mm. And so I knew early in life I had to be on the path of an entrepreneur, my own boss. Mm. I knew I would not survive mentally and spiritually and just me. I wouldn't survive in a corporate America. And I was right. As I look back, I was totally right about that, about my personality. And some people I've known go to corporate America, they become vastly successful and wealthy. But my path, I just knew I would just bump heads with too many people and they would just kick me out and fire me. And I don't know, because I'm just not a great employee kind of thing. So for me, that was it. And I was the same thing. I would rather run my own business and make less money, because I know in the end, eventually, if I keep running that business and I can stay in the game long enough, that I'm going to find something that really, really goes big. Right. And I was able to do that because one of the reasons is you said, I'm a co-founder of a family of funds that when I retired, we were managing $28 billion assets under management. Billion is a big number. Right. So I do this all the time on stage.
Help people understand how big.
Here we go. If I give you $1 a second, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I never sleep, I never go to the bathroom. I'm like, boom, boom. How many seconds does it take me or how long does it take me to give you $1 billion? Do you know the answer, or did you read my book already?
I know the answer from what you've said, so I'll let
Yeah.
you tell the
Yeah,
audience.
it's 31.7 years. People are like, what? A billion is 31.7 years of seconds? Because people misuse the word billion all the time. They go, John, I was just outside and I saw this huge flock of birds. There must have been a billion birds out there. And I'm going, no, there wasn't. You know how I know? I've done the math. A billion is 31.7 years of seconds, right? People misuse the
You're not
billion.
seeing the sky.
Right.
A
Yeah.
billion.
So when I tell people, me and my partners, and I have brilliant partners that I couldn't have done it. No way in heavens could I have done this by myself. I had brilliant partners, and we went from zero in 16 years, AUM, assets under management, from zero to $28 billion assets under management, 16 years. And then we went public on New York Stock Exchange, and I retired the next month after that. I ended up at that time, we had 32 partners, I think it was, and
Equity partners.
Wow. And 4,300 employees ish in 33 states, And again, I had brilliant partners, and I start business to get them going, but these other partners that came in, they were able to take it to a new height, right? That I could have never done. And it's just, you surround yourself with really brilliant people. And I knew that about myself way back when. And I thought, I've got to find more talented people than I am. Because I realized my talent was a good talent. It was this. And I realized I could build a company this big, but I thought I knew people that could build companies this big. I can start companies. I can get them up to this size. Other people have a trouble starting. They're not entrepreneurs, right? But once you give them, or they land on a pretty good idea, and it's already started, it's already making money, they can really make it grow.
Put some gas.
Pour some gas on that fire, right? Mm-hmm. And so my partners were absolutely are still absolutely brilliant, and they still run the company, and I'm still a large shareholder in it, but I'm just totally retired. Yeah.
Amazing. And right now, you're still, a part of that company. I guess you're retired.
Just as a shareholder.
Yeah, as a shareholder.
Yeah, I'm a partner emeritus,
Yeah.
They can call me anytime, and, but they never do,
Yeah.
They can call me, but I don't have any emails. I don't sit on any boards. I just am a large shareholder of the company. Yeah.
Which it's now like, was it 57, 58?
No, I think they're about $50 billion assets under management right now. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people that have that hunger that are listening to this podcast, and it's just them. And they are either, like, I want to get out of my day job, but I just started having kids, or, like,
I've been there.
I'm starting the grind.
Yeah.
And they want to jump to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And then there's also the entrepreneurs that it's just them, and they don't know how to bring on those other people that can put gasoline on the fire that they've already started.
It's difficult. Finding a good partner that fits your personality and your structure and can be loyal. And that's really hard, because most partnerships break apart. Right. And so, like I said, I had 14 businesses, right? Every one of them had a partner. I don't think I had one business in the 14 that I didn't have a partner with. I liked team sports growing up. I liked having a quarterback that could throw a bomb, and one guy that could catch it, and one guy can run, and one guy can block. Everyone has their special skill sets. I like a team sport. I when we hired people, I pretty much always asked them. I tell them, I said, listen, when you come work for this company, we're not playing tennis. We're not playing golf. This is a team sport. And you have to be a team player. And what that means is, and this is what I've told my sons and people that I mentor. I said, a lot of people say they're team players in business, but they're not. And this is the essence of a team player. He has a couple examples. You go into your boardroom, and there's all your partners are in there, and you argue and you argue and you argue and you argue. And let's say there's 20 of them, and 16 of them vote that we're going to go this way, and 4 say we should go this way. So the four guys, or 4 people, lost the vote. When you come out of that conference room, you are a united front. No one knows who voted outside that room. No one knows who voted against it. And the 4 can't go back to their office and go, well, I hate it. I'm not badmouth it. They have to go back to their office and promote it, right? Let's give you another example. We're on a rowboat somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, okay? And we got 20 people on the rowboat. We only have so much water and so much food. And so we have to make a decision. We can't just sit there and talk about it for days and days and days. So you stand up and you say, listen, I think we're 200 miles from Asia. We should row west. And I say, I think we're 200 miles from California. We should row, east. And you're going, well, I looked at the stars. I looked at the stars and we have a vote. And 16 people vote for you. We should go this way. And even I believe we're thousands and thousands of miles away from Asia, right? Because I voted, my 4 guys or my people voted for me. So when we vote, the team decided to row this way. Are you a team player? Are you going to row west? Even though you believe they're totally wrong, right? And if you're going to row west with the team and you're going to row harder now because they all know you voted to go that way. You got to row. You can't be dragging your oar in the water, slowing things down. You can't be, chattering negative things. You have to be the best cheerleader rowing because you're a team player. And that's what I would tell people when they come to work for us. I would say, listen, you're not going to agree with some things we do. But when you come out of that conference room, there's no going to the water, the water cooler and getting a drink and talking to the other employees and bad mouthing the decision. No, you have to be. And so we're not playing golf. We're not playing tennis. It's a team sport, dude. And so when the huddle breaks in a football, always football, when the huddle breaks and you don't like the call, when you come out, you got to block your hardest because you're a team player. You don't come out of the huddle and you're a blocker and just, I'm not going to block for this play. That's playing golf and that's playing tennis, right? So that was the essence of, partnerships, right? Where you actually are working at things that you don't totally agree with, but the group, the mind trust that you have put together, these are all smart people in the room. And the majority of them have voted, we're going this way. And you don't think it's right. Are you a team player? And if you're not a team player, get off the team. Yeah. And over the years, some partners had to leave.
It has to happen. Yeah.
Some partners say they're team players.
If they're not going to row.
And they're going to talk bad and they're going to put oars in. Yeah. So that's the analogy of partnerships. And that's difficult and it's difficult to find people like that, that will row in a direction that they don't believe is right. And they'll be the best rower. They'll row faster and harder and they'll sing the songs and get everyone rowing. That's the best team player ever. And if you can get a group of people like that, the probability back to probabilities, the probability you're going to succeed goes way up, even though you're rowing in the wrong direction. Right.
So take me from a solopreneur to getting your first 2 other rowers with you.
I think
what's the conversation? How are you and targeting the people properly?
Yeah, over the 14 businesses, I'm trying to pick out a few examples, and they don't work in every single 14 businesses. Yeah. But in my last business, the funds, like I could underwrite. We're going to buy apartments, right? I could underwrite a 20-unit apartment complex. Okay. I can do it. Right. And we can, I can assess the risks and whatever. But what I wanted to do is I wanted us to underwrite and purchase 1,200 unit apartment complexes. Right.
A little different.
I don't know how to do that. Right. So I would imagine someone in my head, they've worked at Wells Fargo for 15 years doing loans for 1,200 unit apartment complexes. And I imagine this person maybe is an Ivy League graduate, worked on Wall Street, worked in whatever. And they've been doing this job. They have gray hair. I talk about gray hair, meaning experience, right? And it's a lady or a guy. I don't know who it is, but they drive to work every day. And the thing they think about every day is they're driving to work, right? One day, I'm going to start my own fund, right? My own real estate fund. And they get to work and they work all day and they drive home. One day I'm going to start my own fund. I'm dreaming that this person exists. And then once I found this person exists in my head, then I just said, I got to find that person, because I'm not going to be able to obtain those skill sets to be able to buy or bid on 1,200 unit apartment complexes. Because look, when you're trying to buy a 20 unit apartment complex, there's a lot of competition. A lot of people can come up with a few $1 million. They can know a rich uncle or whatever, right? But when you're trying to purchase a 1,200 unit apartment complex, there's 2 bidders. And if you don't win this bid, you're going to win the next one. And that if there's 2 bidders, that means there's large margins, right? When there's 40 bidders, that means the margins are going to be really
Supply
tight,
and
right?
demand.
So you have to, in life, in business, I believe, you have to figure out how to do something that other people cannot do, or you have to do something that other people don't want to do. And so when my sons grew up in their teenage years, I told them, I said, look, there's a lot of money in garbage. There's a lot of money collecting garbage. No one wants to do it. No one wants to go back to their 20-year reunion. Hey, what do you do? Oh, I run a garbage company. They don't want to do it, but there's a lot of money in it because why? No one wants to do it. Or you could do like a brain surgeon, right? You have to go to school a long time, but you can do things that a regular doctor can't do. Therefore, you make a lot of money, right? So if you can do things, if you can learn to do something that a lot of people can't do, then there are larger margins. So we learned how to find large amounts of money from investors, pull them to one place, and go bid on 1,200 unit apartment complexes, right? A lot of people can't do that. Therefore, there's lots of margin. We can do things at my company, my partners can, that other people cannot do. And these little companies that can buy a 5-unit apartment complex, 15-unit apartment complex, a lot of people can do that. By definition, the margins are going to be smaller. So in life, my sons, I said, no, look, you gotta be a brain surgeon. A dentist is here. An orthodontist is here. Orthodontist makes more money because an orthodontist can do things a dentist can't do. Right. And so as you move up that ladder in the finance world, I just looked, it was 1999. And I watched a newscaster. And this newscaster was vilifying fund managers in New York. And she had her microphone and she's like, rah, rah, rah. They make all this money and they pay really low taxes. They pay carried interest, capital gains rates, but they should be paying this. And she's vilifying these people. And I was like, why are you vilifying these people? I want to be that person, right? I'm like, why are you talking down? I want to figure out how to be a hedge fund manager, a fund manager. And I decided in 1999, I'm going to get up every day and try to start my own fund, my own investment fund. Now, it took me 5 years. I didn't launch my first fund until 2004. So during those 5 years, I got my Series 7 stockbroker's license. I got a mortgage license. I started selling mortgages, and I eventually got my Series 65 investment advisor license. And there were no courses. Yeah. There's no hedge fund manager in New York back then going, I'm going to take a day off and I'm going to teach John Pennington how to run a fund. It didn't exist, right? And so you just had to learn just yourself. So I just found private placement memorandums, which are called PPMs, limited partnership agreements, which are called LPAs, and subscription documents, and that's the 3 documents you get in a fund as if you're going to be an investor. And you would just read them and read them over and read them and read them and read them and read them. And eventually we started doing syndicated loans on real estate. And then eventually in 2004, we just said, look, we got to start this fund. And me and my one partner, we just said, we're going to stop doing syndications, meaning just loan here, one-off loans here and there. We're going to grab all our investors, say, we're going to start a fund. And we're going to put the money into the fund, and we're going to go out and just do loans. We're going to do short-term real estate loans, 1 to 6 months. And that was our first fund. And we ran great. But I'm saying that was a 5-year journey of me waking up every day, staying healthy, and trying to figure out how I could be the best fund manager ever. And then once we started that fund, I realized we needed more talent. And I started envisioning this person that could underwrite 1,200 unit apartment complexes. And we found that person a couple of years ago and brought them in as a partner. Right. And then we were underwriting these huge in the third fund, or the first 2 funds, we did loans on real estate. The third fund came in 2008. And then we started buying property in 2009, which was the great financial crisis. Right. Yeah. And so we were out there just calling up banks saying, what do you want to sell? Because they were foreclosing on everything. Right. And we had my partners were brilliant partners, just underwriting these huge.
You had money during that time.
That's right. Yeah. It was the timing was, but my first 2 funds were still existing, and we changed, we pivoted. Yeah. We stopped lending on real estate and said, we're going to start buying because it's better to buy. Right. And then we went from 0 to 28 billion in 16 years. Yeah. Yeah.
growing up, how were you different than, your neighbor kids? Like, how was your upbringing?
My sister was valedictorian, my older sister, and I was kind of the opposite. I was the sports guy with the
Yeah,
lower grades, right? And then, when I had the
the
path,
meathead.
yeah, the meathead, yeah. And then when I had the path change when I was about 17, I just said, you got to let go of the sports thing and just start concentrating
Yeah,
on, and so I changed paths and I never was able to get to my sister's level of, academics, but I changed paths and went to college and struggled through the first couple of years of college. Just, I was a very slow reader. I'm still a slow reader, but I've read legal documents for years and years and years. That's all I did all day long sometimes. And so I became a really good
yeah,
editor. I wrote some books now, but if you'd talked to me 25, 30 years ago, you would say that guy can never write a book. I mean, he's such a slow reader. He's such bad with grammar. He's such bad with, it's really bad. And I don't know why I was a slow reader. I just always was a seriously slow reader. And I thought I could be a good lawyer in college. I thought maybe I should go to law school. And I realized I'm such a slow reader. I can never keep up with the law school. So I just got a bachelor's degree in economics, and it served me well.
yeah.
It was I just used that economics of how the economy around the world works and trying to predict how the economy doesn't work or work and what's really going on behind the scenes. And that's kind
Yeah.
of, I never really used my economics specifically in any of my companies I started, but it really has served me well over the
Well-rounded
years. Yeah.
knowledge for
Yeah.
what you went into.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah.
With your dad passing, I feel like, at least for me, when my dad passed, I started to reflect on like the really meaningful moments. And for you, I'm curious to hear, what are those like little random videotapes that play in your mind when you think of your
There's
dad?
no one real thing. My dad worked in a test site. So it's a 2 hour commute to the test site,
Yeah.
and you work 8 hours and you commute 2 hours home. You ride a bus.
Yeah.
It's a 12-hour day. You make that much money
It's worth
better
it.
out there that's worth it. Right.
Mm.
He would still coach my football team. He still coached my baseball team. Right. How? He just, and that it was like, you just wake up every day and try and you just work hard. And I think that the main thing my dad, taught me through example was you have a lot of energy that you don't realize you have. And so when I got to college, I had 2 kids in college. I had a wife and 2 kids. I worked 40 hours a week in college putting yard sprinkler systems in. I'm digging, I got a pickaxe, I'm gluing pipe, right? Until, 4:30 in the afternoon. I'd come home, eat, get in my car or my motorcycle, drive to college, and spend from 7 till 10:15 at night at college classes 4 nights a week. Weekends, I would study and cram and go back and do 40 hours a week. And it was like, well, and people say, how'd you do that? Well, I don't know. I just watched my dad all these years. Just, he got up in the morning and worked until went to bed.
It's
Right.
just the
It
expectation
was just
for
the
your body.
that's just what you did. Right. And I think I learned that from him, that other people say, no, you can't work 40 hours a week. And the travel time to work, back, then travel time to the university and back every night, and have 2 kids and a wife you just can't do it. And well, I don't know if I don't know if that's not the right word. Can't. It's, I don't know.
So, yeah, something I've seen, Bridger has the same type of energy and flow that
Yeah.
you have, and
Yeah.
it obviously was instilled.
Yeah.
How would you take someone that, has like a lower energy and, they want to have that type of energy? What advice would you give? Because this is something
Yeah.
you've.
Yeah. I would have them memorize. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of being poor. I'm not afraid of being old. I'm just afraid of being old and poor at the same time, and have them say it for 30 days every day to themselves in the mirror, and then have them focus for those 30 days on, well, what are you working for every day? What are you really, really working for? Are you working out of fear? Are you working out of a carrot and stick? What are you doing there? And that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to that, so.
What do you think about diluted focus?
You mean the well-rounded focus?
I'm just talking about, you take these people that are trying to figure out what to do with their life.
Yes. And I've done that most of my life, right? I had my entrepreneur antennas up since I was 17. And
Hmm.
I'm always trying to find the next thing or the next move or the next whatever. And so very few entrepreneurs that I know of find their calling in their early 20s and the one thing they're going to do for the next 40 years. Most of them do something for so many years and they jump and do another thing for so many years. And like me, 14 businesses, right? And then the last one really hit huge and it retired me kind of thing. Right. So I would say for most people, it's a not never ending, but it's a constant, and it will probably be constant for you to find your right path for years and years and years and years. But sometimes in life you have to go, I'm 5'9", 175 pounds. The probability of me being a professional athlete, even though I'm really good at all these sports, is really low. And so you gotta find another path because get your antennas up and keep them doing this, and hopefully you'll pick up some wavelength, and it'll hit, and you'll try it for a while, and this will work for so many years, and might have to do it again and try it again, kind of thing.
Is there anything else you want our listeners to understand?
Would you like to talk about world economics and the U.S. dollar?
Yeah, let's do it.
I might blow up your podcast, or you might cut this part off, but
No.
so my theory is this: the US dollar is the best product that's ever been made by mankind.
Explain that.
It's a product. We make 1 trillion of these products. Think about the dollar as America's number one product. Okay. We make 1 trillion of these, right? And people will lie, cheat, and steal to get them. And me and you will work 80 hours a week to get more. And then guess what? They'll make another 1 trillion come off the conveyor belt, and people will lie, steal, and cheat to get them. And me and you'll work 80 hours a week to get them. Meaning this product has insatiable demand. It sells hotter. It sells better than iPhones. It sells better than shoes. It is the number one product ever invented. And by definition, if it has insatiable demand, by definition, it is the number one product. Okay. The Federal Reserve says that their number one job is to keep unemployment rate, keep inflation low and keep unemployment low. That is their jobs. Okay. But the underlying job is to protect and promote the US dollar. As long as they protect and promote the US dollar, everything around the world works for me and you. We go anywhere in the world pretty much and we hand out US dollars and people take them. Well, if you're from Zimbabwe, that's not true. If you're from China and you're trying to hand out yuan or renminbi over, that is not always true for other countries. We have the world reserve currency, the US dollar. How did we get it? How did we obtain the world reserve currency? And I tell people say, well, the dollar's going down, down, down. Okay. I'll just go back with you. In 1960-ish, I think if my numbers are right here, the US dollar was 54% of all world reserve currency. So every bank in the world had 54% of their holdings was US dollars. In 2001, it was 70+%, right? Of world reserve currency. That's 2001. And now it's probably 50 something. In 1960, it was 45%. And now it's about 55% of world reserve currency. So we've gone from 45% of world to 70 something percent back to 55% ish. Okay. But we're still, the closest second is the euro, right? The euro is 20% of the world reserve currency. The yuan, the Chinese yuan, is 2.7% of the world reserve currency, right? They're like, yeah, the yuan's going to take over the world. China's going to take over the world. No, they're not. No, they're not. They may in 100 or 200 years, but nothing soon, right? And how does a product become the most prolific, best product ever? It has a world navy that forces you to accept it. It has the IRS. It has the SEC. It has the presidency. It has all these things, all this group of people, the Congress, all this most powerful group working for all these different things you think they're working for, but reality, way down beneath everything, their number one job, and sometimes they forget their number one job, but their number one job is to protect and promote the US dollar. That's it. And it's their number one product, right? And so let me go back to World War I, World War II, okay? So World War One. Okay, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. In 1914, it really got going. Okay, but the reason they created the Federal Reserve is because in 1907 there was a huge stock market crash. Not 2007, 1907. So a few years later, you have the SEC, the Federal Reserve is created, okay? And then they screwed things up. They did all kinds of things. 1929, we have a huge stock market crash. 3 years later, in 1933, 34, the SEC is created. And they put they put John F. Kennedy's dad, Joseph Kennedy, as the first dude to run the SEC. Why? It's kind of like this, a metaphor. If you have a chicken coop and the foxes keep getting in the chicken coop, the best way to secure that chicken coop is to hire a fox. Say, fox, tell us how to keep the other fox out, right? So John F. Kennedy's dad, Joseph Kennedy, made so much money in the stock market before they formed the SEC and they put him in charge and they said, hey, change some things here, right? Well, also in 1933, right, same time, I don't know if you know this, but the United States confiscated all the gold, in the whole country. Your grandfather, my grandfather, in 1933, 34, if they had 5 gold coins in their pocket, they can go to jail. You're like, whoa, this is America. That didn't happen. It did happen. In 1933, it was an executive order, and the SEC backed it up, and the Federal Reserve, you had to a certain date to sell all your gold to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve take that gold and put it in Fort Knox, and they'd give you paper money for it, right?
It's crazy.
And it was patriotic, right? You were like, if you were my friend back then, you had like 10 gold coins. I said, dude, we've had a depression in 1929 where the country's down here.
You need to do your part.
You need to do your part. Go sell your gold right now, and they will take the gold to Fort Knox, and we will increase the US dollar to world status, right? Now, a couple of things that happened. So then World War II came along, and World War I is kind of the same. We entered the war late, meaning people are fighting all over the world, and we're not in the war, but we're selling them stuff. You want some wheat? You want some Jeeps? You want a tank?
Everyone's paying
in gold. That's right. They're paying in gold. France is paying in gold. England's paying in gold. Everyone's paying us in gold. And so by almost the end of the war in 1944, a war is almost over, and we knew we were going to win. It was like math, right? We're making like 96,000 planes a year. Germany's making 50,000 planes. We're making 20,000 tanks. They're making 1,200 tanks. It was just, we had all the steel. You couldn't get to our supplies. It was math. But anyway, in 1944, in a little place called in New Hampshire, a little place called Bretton Woods, 44 countries sent 1,000 people to reset the world reserve currency status of money. And so they met, and I don't know how many days they were there. They argued and argued and argued. Anyway, at the end of it, it was the US dollar will now be backed by gold, and the French franc will no longer be backed by gold. It'll be backed by the US dollar. Okay.
Wow.
So kind of the French franc is backed by gold, but it's not really backed by gold. Okay. That's 1944. Okay. And you came out of this Bretton Woods agreement. It was kind of an underwritten, what am I trying to say? It wasn't really written in the agreement, but it's basically this. Navies are one of the most expensive things for a country to own as a navy. It's very expensive to own a navy. Okay. Yep. And at the end of World War II, Britain's navy is kind of intact. Our navy's all intact. Italy's navy's gone. Russia's navy's gone. China's navy's gone. Japan's navy's gone. Germany navy's gone. They're all gone. Right? We have the navy, and Britain has some. Okay. And we basically said, listen, you don't need a navy anymore. If you're in a little country somewhere and you want to sell your goods across the world, we'll be your navy.
So we monopolize navy.
We just want you to do one thing: buy and sell your oil in US dollars. Back to my theory, protect and promote the US dollar. That's our number one product, right? And so from 1944 to 1971, that was kind of it. So in 1971, President Nixon's the president, okay? And France, President de Gaulle, who was the general in the World War II, but he's now the president of France, he has all these US dollars, and he's like, wait a minute, you guys are printing way more money than you guys have dollars. So he sends 2 ships over across the Atlantic in one of our ports. I think it was New York. He says, we're here with boatloads of US dollars. We want our gold back, right? Because because the French franc and the US dollar is backed by gold. So they have all these US dollars backed by gold. So your grandfather, if you had $100 bill, could not go down and get gold for it. But if you're a citizen of France, guess what? You can bring a $100 bill and you get gold for it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, he brings these two ships over, and on a Sunday night, is August 15th, 1971. On a Sunday night, President Nixon gets on the TV. He goes, I can't do President Nixon's voice, but he's basically saying market manipulators around the world are trying to hurt our currency. So temporarily, we're no longer gonna back our dollar by gold anymore. It's gonna be backed by the United States government. It's Sunday night. Monday morning, the market's open. No one cares. The stock market just does this a little bit, and no one cares. President de Gaulle had to take his boats all the way back to France with his dollars, and never got his gold. Never got his gold. And so that has been there since 1971. So the dollar as a fiat currency is 55 years old, something like that, right? 55 years old.
Just took over.
Yeah.
Everything.
He just said no. He goes, I want my gold. No, go away. Right. And so since this time,
a temporary close.
Yes, a temporary, right? So since this time, the US dollar has done the up and down all around, but it's still world reserve currency for the whole world. Right. And people say, well, we got to replace it with Bitcoin, or we got to replace it with something. Yeah. Well, you can eventually replace it. Sure, you can, but you're not going to do it in a decade. You're not going to do it in 2 decades, because you have to have something to replace it with. So give you a story. I love people in Arizona. Arizona people, don't get mad at me for this. I'm just giving you an example. Let's just say me and you agree that all the water in Arizona is bad. Okay. And I said, well, okay, what's your answer? And you go, let's replace it with Gatorade. I go, great. So we go around the whole earth and we grab every bottle of Gatorade and we bring it to Arizona. It's still not even enough to fill it, right? You can't, there's like this much Gatorade, but you need this much water, right? You have to have something to replace it with, right? And that's what the problem with the US dollar is. You just can't, it's everywhere. Yeah. It's all over the earth, right? And so there's a difference between the euro and the euro dollar. People confuse it all the time. It's not the same thing. The euro is a fiat currency that the 20 European countries use, okay? The euro dollar are US dollars outside of the Federal Reserve System. Huh. So when Saudi Arabia lends $14 billion to Turkey, US dollars, that's a euro dollar. Guess what? Turkey, now, if some years in the future, they have to go get US dollars to pay back Saudi Arabia. They can't pay them back in chickens, right? So what does that do? That creates demand for the US dollar. They have to go get them, right? Wow. Me and you have to pay taxes in US dollars. So that every year I have to go get dollars to pay taxes. That creates insatiable demand, right? And people, let's go back to 1971. You're in 1971, okay? You live in Germany and you want to buy a tanker of oil from Saudi Arabia. You can't wire your Deutschmarks down to Saudi Arabia and buy it. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to send your Deutschmarks to the New York Fed. New York Fed will change those Deutschmarks into US dollars, and then you wire US dollars to Saudi Arabia, and then Saudi Arabia will send you oil. That creates insatiable demand for the number one product. Okay.
Dollar.
This is the basis of my Dollars, Gold, and Bitcoin book, right? And why a lot of things in this earth is caused by the government not telling you, but they're always protecting the number one product. And so, you remember when Putin, let me back up. I got two more things. So we know 2 people.
You need to do a full TED talk on
Yeah,
this.
exactly. We know 2 people that sold oil in large amounts, not using US dollars. The first guy was Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, and he died and then Saddam Hussein of Iraq. Both these dudes, just within a few years after them selling a lot of oil, no US dollars. Well, I don't know how to say it politely, but let's just say they left the planet. Okay. And I'm not saying the US killed them. I'm just saying the US backed away from them and let their enemies hit them. They were protected, but right. Putin, 3 or 4 years ago, he invaded Ukraine. Okay. Now you guys ever heard of the BRICS? You know what the BRICS nations are?
Tell us about
You know what the BRICS dollar? So the BRICS, BRICS, the BRICS nations are trying to do a BRICS dollar backed by commodities. It's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And now they've added a couple other countries. But that's the BRICS dollar. And they want to have a dollar system called the BRICS dollar denominated by, commodities. If you have a barrel of oil, you get so many BRICS dollars. If you have a bushel of wheat, you get so many BRICS dollars. So this has been on the table for BRICS countries for the last 10, 15 years. And I think Putin thought the BRICS dollar is going to come to fruition. They're going to be able to disavow the US dollar. And therefore, if I take over Ukraine, they have a lot of wheat, they have a lot of oil, I'll get more BRICS dollars. Okay. So he takes over Ukraine. And a few months later, the Biden administration made a mistake. They did make a mistake. They froze the Russian oligarchs' US dollars in Russia. They just cut them off. And so then Putin said, you know what, we're just going to sell our oil now in rubles and gold. That's all we're going to do. Okay. Now, I don't know if you know this, but from Russia under the Baltic Sea, there's two big pipelines. They go from Russia under the Baltic Sea to Germany, okay? And they send natural gas. They're called Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, okay? A few months after Putin says, we're not going to sell our oil with US dollars anymore. We're only going to use gold and rubles. Someone with a deep water submarine went under the Baltic Sea and blew up Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. And then they went up the coast a little bit and blew them up again. Now, we don't know who did it. I'm not saying I know who did it. I don't know who did it. All I'm saying is, remember, protect and promote your number one product, right? Wow. You're not going to use US dollars for oil? Okay, we'll just take out like Muammar Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, right? So like we just bombed Iran, right? Iran has been selling their oil to China with yuan, not US dollars.
So it's just to protect the dollar.
It comes down. Wow. Most things in the world come down to. Do you remember the show Captain
Captain Phillips?
Yeah, Captain Phillips. Right. It's a Canadian tanker coming out of the Middle East. Right. Pirates take over. Who comes in? United States, and they take out the pirates. Why? Because Canada buys and sells their oil in US dollars. But if a Iranian tanker comes out of there, going to China, guess what? Pirates? We don't know.
We're good.
We're good. And China has to send their navy over and try to get those pirates out of there, right? So this is how the SEC, the IRS, the president, the U.S. government, they confiscate gold. They have a navy. They do all this stuff because underlying my theory is number one, it's protect and promote the U.S. dollar. And if Bitcoin becomes a threat, or if the yuan becomes a threat, then the United States doesn't try to kill Bitcoin, doesn't try to kill the yuan. They just try to mitigate it, control it, right? And so this is the essence of my theory in my book, Dollars, Gold, and Bitcoin.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so, well, right now with everyone that's in office and stuff, they're very pro crypto. Mm-hmm. And
so this is the change.
Yeah.
I wrote my book when Biden was president. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they were fighting crypto. Right. And now it seems like the Trump administration is total. So
enabling it. Yeah.
So Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary, right? If you go back in time, he was partners with George Soros and a guy named Druckenmiller. Okay. And back, I think in the 90s, these three guys, along with a bunch of other people, started a fund, and they found that the British pound was really weak, and they started shorting the British pound. Short, raise more money. Short, raise more money. Short. They broke the British pound and they made it crash. These guys all made a boatload of money. Okay. So now Bessent is now Trump's Secretary of Treasury, right? And he has changed the thing. He has basically said, we all know we have this huge debt and it's getting bigger and bigger. We got a debt wall coming up. Okay. So how are we going to expand the tent? How are we going to make the US dollar stay number one? Okay. Because we're going to hit a debt wall and people are going to be not confident in the US dollar. Wait a minute. Why don't we promote all stable coins as US dollar coins? So if you have one stable coin, you have one US dollar. And the new act that they just put through, the new act says a stable coin can also have US treasuries back the stable coin. So if you own a stable coin, the people do it, You have to have one US dollar in your bank, or you have to have US treasuries to back it. So that creates a market, for US treasuries, which is US dollar, right? And
Oh my
so,
gosh.
I'll give you two examples. If you live in Hong Kong right now, or let's say you live in New Zealand, both, okay, and you send your money to the New York Stock Exchange, and you buy Microsoft for $100, and it goes up to $200, and you sell it, you made $100 profit. Guess what? You live in Hong Kong, you pay no tax. If you live in New Zealand, you pay no tax. Why? Why do you do that? Because when they wrote the rules, they want people's money coming to the US, right? As a loss leader. If you live in Hong Kong, you can invest in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, but if you make money there, you pay tax, okay? Let me give you another one. In Utah, we live in Utah. In Utah, we have so many banks. We have American Express Bank. We have Discover Card Bank. We have the Walmart Industrial Bank. Why do we have so many banks in Utah? Because years ago, the Utah legislation wrote laws in favor of banks in Utah. Like when I ran my lending funds, we never did loans in California, because in California, the laws and loans are written, they slanted toward the borrower. In Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, where we did our loans, they're written toward the lender, right? So therefore, there's more people okay. So this is back to Bassett. They're trying to figure out, wait a minute, let's get the business. Let's have all cryptocurrencies in the US. Let's give cryptocurrency companies a way to really expand the US dollar. Let's give cryptocurrency, you buy and sell cryptocurrency, you don't pay tax on it, right? Like the not New York Stock Exchange, like Utah has done. It's a concerted effort to get the business. Once we get the business for 10, 15, 20 years, then we'll figure out how to tax it. Then we'll figure out how to grab it. But you got to get the business first, right? And so what they're doing is a kid in Zimbabwe, he has a phone, he doesn't have a house, whatever. Let's say you pay him to dig a trench and he gets paid in Zimbabwe dollars. Well, on his phone now, guess what he can do? I'm going to change these Zimbabwe dollars today into
USD.
a Tether coin or a USD coin, right? And they change it into a stable coin. And if most stable coins are backed by the US dollar, he just created demand for the US dollar. What did Scott Bessent do? Protect and promote the US dollar. So that he's kicking the debt thing down the road 10, 15, 20 years. And we thought the debt thing was just a few years away. Yeah. But now as he expands the market for US dollars around the world, Euro dollars and all these stuff, he's expanding the access, is making it easy for everyone in the world to have a stable coin, which is US dollar backed, which is backed by the US treasuries that they sell. This is the underlying theory of the whole thing, right? So it's a brilliant move by the administration to kick the debt can down the road to let someone else figure it out, right? Because obviously they can't stop spending money. Both sides, Democrats, Republicans, both spend the money. So what are we going to do? We have to create insatiable demand. So we have to expand the tent, right?
Wow. Yeah, that's like a lot.
You're starting to get glazy eyed.
No.
Your eyes are going, what the heck's going on here?
It's like, if I were to try and regurgitate that would be extremely difficult. Like you can just tell how much effort and time you've put into being able to articulate that really well. And I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so a lot of dots just connected for me where it's like, what on earth, you know?
Yeah.
So amazing job on that.
So yeah, when you watch news now and there's something weird, like remember when Biden got elected and he turned off the Keystone Pipeline from Canada?
Yeah.
You're like, why? Why would you do that, right? Well, he's like, okay, America was starting to be a producer of oil, right? And therefore, he's got to keep the Saudis selling their oil, not in yuan. We wanted to sell them in US dollars, right? So if I turn the oil off from Canada, that will help the oil prices in the world. And therefore, Saudi Arabia, where we got your back, just keep US dollars, right? But President Trump has switched it. He figured out eventually they're going to want to sell their oil to China for the yuan, right? Okay. So he sent over this last 3 months ago, they went over, Intel went over, NVIDIA went over, Apple went over, all the like 40 or 50 big tech companies flew to Saudi Arabia at this big conference, right? And they're selling tech. They're selling tech to Saudi Arabia. We don't need your oil anymore because the United States produces more oil than we have. We actually produce more food than we have. So we don't need your oil anymore, but we want you to keep demanding US dollars. We're going to sell you billions, trillions of dollars of our technology. And guess what you got to do to buy that stuff? You have to find US dollars. And how do you find US dollars? You take your oil and you sell it for only US dollars. So you have US dollars so you can buy tech, right? People are like, oh no, China's going to start selling all their treasuries and going to crash US dollar. No, they're not. They're not selling US treasuries to crash US dollar. They're selling US treasuries because Trump put big tariffs on them. Now we're not buying from them. They have less US dollars. And China, guess what? Imports 80% of their oil. They import 60% of their food around the world. They need people to accept their currency, which not a lot of people are accepting the yuan these days because they got a big problem with that. So how does China get US dollars? They have to sell their treasuries to get US dollars. They're not selling the treasuries to crash the dollar. They're selling the treasuries because they're out of dollars. They have to get dollars to buy stuff, right? So this is the whole theory of the book, and this is my whole theory of how the world is working. People like to play video games.
Yeah.
This is the biggest game ever. But I've just explained to you.
Yeah.
Worldwide, people blowing up pipelines, people getting killed because they selling oil. It's the biggest game ever. And the US positions things around the world
to protect the dollar.
To protect the dollar.
Wow. That is a big game.
It's huge.
Which also makes a lot of sense for the US, obviously, to keep everything in control.
And we benefit by it.
Yeah.
We're entrepreneurs in the country with the reserve currency. We have more advantage than any other entrepreneur on the planet. We have financing, we have the US dollar, we have A, B, C, D. Just line it up we're not the best at math, we're not the best at reading, but we are, for an entrepreneur, this is the best place to be on the planet, the United States of America.
I think there's just so many takeaways from this. And I feel like we could even dive deeper into a lot of those different sectors.
Yeah.
And so hopefully another time.
Maybe I'll come back. I'll come back and dive deeper. Yeah. Yeah.
But
anyway, it's been really fun being here.
Yeah, no, you're phenomenal to talk with. There's so much intelligence behind that gold medal winner.
The one touch.
The one touch.
Touch with two hands, John. Come on.
And best of luck to you in your race coming up.
Thank you.
Your races.
Yeah.
It's been a complete honor.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for being here.
All right.
All right. That's the podcast.